Hey, hey, what's going on? Hi. Uh, really big show, really big. Did you hear the news that happened this week? Well, that's good because we have it for you. It happened, and what does it mean? What does Schedule 3 weed mean? You've tuned into the right place. This is Cannabis Legalization News. My name's Tom. You can find me over at CannabisIndustryLawyer.com. This week we have more than just me throwing pens at you, but I will throw some more pens at you. I have like two left. Okay, so we're going to talk about the biggest thing ever, and then social equity portals have opened in Maryland. There was also a lottery, a really quick one that happened in Missouri, won another license. We have a lot of information about what that Schedule 3 change is going to mean for the industry. And then I have a lot of news from last week because we were discussing a lot of New York. So stuff on Alabama, stuff more in Maryland. Pot stocks, we're talking about pot stocks. We have some international news. A stupid GOP congressman from North Carolina did something on Friday, something out of Colorado, and we have a Name That Strain. So thank you for tuning in, and it is Cannabis Legalization News. Let's start. Joining us today is Josh Kincaid, host of the Talking Hedge. Thanks for coming on and filling in while Miggy is off.
I got you. I'm here.
Awesome. Hey, did you hear any news in cannabis this week at all?
No, man. It was there was no news at all. It was silent.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just pull up a random article then. Biggest thing ever reported out of MJ Biz Daily. Biggest thing ever, marijuana rescheduling recommendation, hailed it by the industry at least. The disclosure that on Wednesday that the Biden administration health officials are going to recommend marijuana be reclassified, that is, from Schedule 1 down to Schedule 3, the same one as Tylenol with codeine, was hailed as the biggest development in MJ policy in more than 50 years. This sent marijuana stocks way up. On that day, they were up like 20%. For the week, I think they were up like 60 or 70%, you know?
Yeah, a lot of them just kind of all pop with the news. Unfortunately, they don't really move independently, but it's a good boost nonetheless for all of them to get that kind of news and notoriety and hopefully some investor interest, all that good stuff.
Investor interest would be great. You know, Miggy and I won a dispensary last month, and so we're going to have to get an investor to get ours operational. It should be easier now because the audit risk should go away, as IRC 280E does not apply to Schedule 3 trafficking, which is nice. So if you're trafficking in steroids, you can deduct the cost of rent. Also
Yeah, man. Yeah. I don't know. I think the one downside, though, like I think it's all good, but I think there's so much interpretation to a 3. Like if you look at methadone, for example, you don't really see a lot of people just dealing out methadone. So unfortunately, worst case scenario is you have really low edibles or whatever else available, and then anything after that has to be prescribed by a doctor. You got to go into pharmacy and go get that. So it could limit the cultivars or strains that's available. All of those things could be impacted. I mean, for example, in Washington, they started out with like 1,500 licenses. There's less than 500 now, and of those, there's about 3 dozen that have never been popped for violations. So yeah. So you just think about that and how much more strict it's going to be under those kind of Schedule 3 rules. I don't know how many people are going to be able to handle that. So it's good news, but I think it's going to wipe out most people.
It could be interesting, and so that's we've already started the rumblings directed directly at Merrick Garland. I should tag some other. I'm a lawyer, but I am in like the middle of nowhere, and so like I'm not in New York or I'm not in Chicago or like LA or Washington D.C. where the lawyer who got quoted in this MJ Biz article is. So that's Shane Pennington, a partner at the D.C. firm Porter Wright. He says it's historic. It's the biggest thing that's happened in cannabis reform at the federal level ever, which, again, not entirely true. But, cannabis legalization reform, the biggest thing that ever happened was made illegal in 1937, and then it was made illegal again in 1970. And this is like the first thing that's ever happened that will actually walk back the federal policy of complete prohibition. But yes, that's interesting that now it's being rescheduled, and so all of these problems with compliance, because not any other Schedule 3 legitimate business operates like the cannabis industry in its current incantation is. Like, they're just operating in compliance with state law and openly and notoriously violating federal law, like not even complying. And that creates a litany of crimes. We'll revisit this later. Like right now, I wanted to move into Maryland because Maryland had some stuff that came out on Friday, and we're helping Maryland and helping people apply in Maryland, which this is the first step in Maryland. The social equity portal verifies the first round of eligibility for cannabis business licenses. Maryland has mostly self-dealt. They've only published zip codes and other information for its own state. But then they say, this is how we found that. You, in theory, can find it in your state, but good luck proving it. So it may create a lawsuit later. So this portal is open for 60 days from September 8th through November 7th. You need to qualify yourself in Maryland before being able to actually get entered in the lottery. Completely different than what Miggy and I had to go through in Illinois.
Yeah. Well, here's a stupid fact for you. Maryland has the highest concentration of millionaires in the country, and also
Connecticut, or is that billionaires?
That might be hedge funds. There's a lot of hedge funds out there, but a lot of the retired government officials live out in Maryland, really close to DC. So I don't know, put two and two together. Maybe they're one of the same.
Yep, Annapolis. They have a lot of wealth there. You go down to Baltimore, not so much. There's some wealth in Baltimore, but then there is some real abject poverty. I'm assuming some of those zip codes that are social equity in Maryland should be in those abject poverty areas, but they define it as 150% of the cannabis arrests. So interestingly enough, exactly how Missouri defines it. So if you were social equity in Missouri by zip code because of the cannabis arrest, you would be qualified as well in Maryland. So go through that portal of eligibility and let's roll the dice in Maryland. It's a much more expensive roll of the dice. Missouri was $1,500 refundable if you don't win. Maryland is $5 large, non-refundable.
Shouldn't they be, in theory, rolling those out first before everybody else? Seems like they're kind of rolling now. They're like, oh yeah, afterthought. Let's roll out the social equity after the fact.
The social equity in Maryland is actually on its second bite of the apple. And so social equity went even in medical. So Maryland had a medical round when COVID kind of hit that was social equity based, and 0 have launched. A 100% failure to launch. So now they have this large social equity fund, and that is going first to those licenses that have not launched. And then hopefully there's some money left over for these social equity applicants that are going to be applying because they're making funds available for them. Don't hold your breath. I would still go raise money or get a good real estate investment trust to help you develop the real estate, as that is the most expensive piece of crap that you have to do in the whole thing, real estate. Yeah. And with that, I think we can move on to the next story. Now, again, I just want to plug Maryland a little bit more. If you do want some help flying in Maryland, head on over to cannabisindustrylawyer.com and fill out our type form on that website. That will allow us to follow up with you and be like, you have to do social equity, right? Oh, that's right. We launched this new website to try to catch social equity applicants and get them signed up. And so I guess we can kind of cover that a little bit, or we can cover it, after 420 somewhere. It's called socialequityincubator.com. And of course, it will have one of these things for your one. Yes. And then the socialequityincubator.com leads to another form where you could fill it out. But it's Missouri, Illinois, and Maryland. They are all having social equity lotteries for a while. So Maryland's is up next. Illinois was this summer. Missouri, it just hit, but they're going to hit again in 24 and in 25. And Illinois still has over 140 dispensaries to give out. So there's more licenses for social equity lotteries all over the country. And I think, what do you think? Do you think social equity lotteries are like the future of how they're going to apportion many of these licenses, especially when it's adult use rec?
Definitely. And I think it should be the first thing now that any new state that rolls out, it would be, I mean, they have no choice. There's no ignorance about it, right? Everyone, there's been all these states, they've been doing it. So any new rollouts should automatically have those first.
Well, not only that, but then like when they do merit-based, and so Illinois was a classic example of a pivot during the application process 4 years ago in 19. So I had to write this application, like a phone book, 350 pages to be completely complete and like beat out other people because they said it's going to be merit-based. And Illinois is getting thousands of applications during the process. And they're like, oh crap, everybody's going to be tied. We're going to have a lottery. And so they moved into a lottery during the application period, and they still got sued. So like limited licenses and merit-based, pure recipe for litigation. For example, we could talk, and we will be talking here about who Verano sued, what state Verano sued later. But
what about with home grows? Because I don't know of any Schedule 3 that you can make from home. And so there's some questions in the comment section about what about home grow, and then they're also asking about drug tests. I think drug tests are going to go away at the state and federal level right away, but home grow is interesting though, because you can't grow tobacco. Like, good luck finding tobacco seeds anywhere, even though it's legal. Can't find them. You're not going to find a cutting, a leaf, nothing like that. So I don't know what's going to happen to home grow.
Yeah, neither do I, but it's built in state law. And so the states, first you would need a federal regulation to stop it, and then the states would need incentivization to get in compliance with those federal regulations, like they do with like highway funds and whatnot. And those federal regulations that are going to be coming forward, they will take years to do those. So like home grow, I'm not sure, but Schedule 3 means that we have federal medical marijuana policy now. Like, marijuana is medicine, according to the United States. It's never been the case before. And so that is fascinating, which means, will your medical cannabis purchases be covered by insurance? How long is that going to take? I think that's going to take until the regulations are written, and that might be 5 years, because we're still waiting on those hemp regs. Well, not all of the hemp regs. The USDA did, but that was the easy job, like getting compliance with farming the hemp. And that still took like years. It took like 3 years to get that one done. And then the FDA has not regulated squat when it comes to CBD or other edibles. And so even if they change the definition of hemp in this year's farm bill to be total THC and shut down a lot of the chicanery that's going on out there that's unlicensed, edibles would still fly right under the radar on that level, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see on that.
Yeah.
Back to the main story. It is what you can follow me on. It's called LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn is where I'm just going to be publishing like a little blog a week until we get this dispensary open in Illinois, kind of chronologing the opening of a dispensary. So later on, maybe we can turn it into a podcast or repackage it as a book or something. And this one, I was just thinking really about, what does Schedule 3 mean? And so when that happened on Wednesday, everybody immediately became a lawyer and said they knew it was going to happen. And they started making all these predictions, which is funny. But Bill, what's this guy's name? Bill Levers over at Beer Bros. So he published just a picture of Section 823 of the Controlled Substances Act that says one of the crimes. And so after you're a Schedule 3 manufacturer, grower, or distributor, retailer, you need to be registered with the Attorney General. Now, that Attorney General, that technically means the DEA, because the DEA is in the Justice Department, and so the Attorney General is technically their boss. And that's why they put Attorney General in there. Now, the Attorney General shall register an applicant to manufacture controlled substances in Schedule 3, unless he determines the issuance of such registration is inconsistent with the public interest. In determining the public interest, the following factors shall be considered. This is really what I think the Garland Memo should be coming in the future. And so if you don't know what the Garland Memo is, that's fine. It doesn't exist yet. but it's predicated off the Ogden Memo or the Cole Memo from the Obama administration, whereas their Attorney General wrote a memorandum regarding federal enforcement policy directed at the DEA and also the Justice Department for their prosecutorial wings as to what they're supposed to be doing. They could do the same thing, because like if DEA reschedules and it changes it to 3, it triggers a rulemaking process, which could take well past 2024, into the next administration if the Democrats don't win. And so that could really be bad for the industry if, granted, they've all been operating out of compliance with federal law, but those crimes are still there because they aren't registered. And so as a result, it's all this specified unlawful activity under the Controlled Substances Act, so it still may be difficult to get paid. You wouldn't be able to get listed on the stock market. All those types of problems. But if they exempt you and they say, hey, as a federal policy under the Garland Memo in the future, we don't need you to be registered with the DEA because, and then it's controls against diversion, all right? Because your state is doing the conversion control. And it's number 2 is compliance with applicable state and local law. Local law, Washington State, Illinois is not like this, but California, New Jersey, Michigan, maybe one day New York, if they ever get their act together, they're dual licensing states. And so you have a license from both the state and also the local government. And then such other factors that may be relevant and consistent with public health and safety. So what we're asking, and we need to get this a little bit better, but we're asking the Attorney General to exempt the industry. If you have a license from a state, that should be enough, and say that you don't have to register with the DEA until the rules are finalized. Something like that. Kick the football down, open the doors up, and say, no, that's not specified unlawful activity anymore. They don't need to register. I determined that. I don't know if that's going to happen. I really hope it does, though. It's like that shakeout you're talking about, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it all depends on what the motive and intent is. Like who's pushing the bill, what's out there. Is it going to destroy the competition or not? I don't know. My biggest concern is that Amazon is going to be one of the biggest retailers out there. They're going to get some kind of pharmaceutical delivery and be the biggest game on the planet. But then what does that do to your options?
And so that's why you get this exemption from the state license. Amazon doesn't have a state license. There's no licensing process. And so if they could gum up the method for getting a licensing process at the federal level while allowing compliance for everybody who has one at the state level, if I was Cresco or GTI or Trulieve, and God willing, one day I will be, not Curaleaf though, Russians. I would be thankful that I hadn't paid the IRC 280E tax yet, but then also starting to lobby pretty hard Democrats, because the other side just doesn't seem to care, that you need to allow this industry to operate above board. And that's going to be more checks for you, Mr. Democrat, if you help us out here. But we'll find out.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong, but I think it's going to destroy the majority of the industry.
Boy, I hope you're wrong too. Like that's one of the things where if all these regulations would have to be done, and that takes that cannabis speed or cannabis time, that's slow. But federal regulation speed is real slow.
Mm-hmm. My theory will be correct if you start seeing licenses being liquidated left and right, like they want to get out because they know if big pharma is coming in, and it's going to screw everybody else. I hope I'm wrong.
Who's giving big pharma the license? There's no methodology to have a federal
lobbyists. It's like follow the money, man. It's just lobbyists. It's
lobbyists. Yeah. Well, then they're going to have to move at regulation speed to be able to get that policy in place, because it just don't exist right now. And then if that's where and the industry won't tolerate that. And so like if it's just going to be a big land grab, because like with pharmaceuticals, the cannabis industry didn't really exist when they made it illegal in 1937. It didn't. It was illegal in every single state. Now the cannabis industry exists. And so it'd be like we don't think about like Bear Pharmaceuticals or Eli Lilly coming in to corner the alcohol market. So I just don't. I mean,
no one buys cigarettes out of trunks or like bootleg gin or anything like that. But I think it will thrive the illicit cannabis market if it goes straight to big pharma, because a lot of people aren't going to put up with that.
Oh no, they aren't. And so, hey, speaking of, it is 20 past the hour, which means that it's 4:20 somewhere. And I'm also going to give a shout out to somebody who used to say it was 5 o'clock somewhere. I'm wearing a Jimmy Buffett shirt from a concert that I went to in 1996. Can you believe that noise? Tell you what. All right, well, smoke them if you got it.
Somebody just said I buy bootleg cigs. That's awesome.
Well, the cigarettes is an interesting case. This is why. Because if you take that package of cigarettes, except for the bootleg ones, don't look at that, and you flip it over, there's going to be a tax stamp on the bottom of it, which I believe is done at the state level to make sure that you have paid the state cigarette tax on that. So even with interstate commerce, like if I'm going to start stocking my shelves with good weed from Humboldt or Oklahoma, try to like do like an arbitrage thing, right? Not have to, because like I was looking at Uncle Ike's, I was trying to get a name that strain from Washington State, and then I didn't. I got a name that strain from somewhere else. But the prices in Washington State retail are our wholesale prices in Illinois.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just picked this one up for $48. It's outdoor, organic, pesticide free. It's not pretty. It's definitely less than 20%. It's probably 17%. Great for a daytime high. Awesome sativa, my go-to. They have ones for $30 retail, which means wholesale those are $10 tops per ounce.
$10 an ounce.
Yeah.
That's wicked. But then
30
you said
every day, like no sale all day long. You got to go to specific, everyday low price stores. It's called Zips. It's a discount store.
Zips. So like an ounce, but like, also meaning quick, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about price and convenience, right? The one that I used to go to right next to my house, it's really hard to. They no longer carry the vape brand I like. The edibles are hard. Like once they come in, they sell out. And in that particular brand I just told you about, when they drop, they're out 5 days, sold out, boom. And then the buyer waits 3 more weeks on his monthly rotation to buy it, and then that makes me irritated. So I'm like, screw it. I'm going to drive 20 minutes. I know it's there. I'm going to go get it. And so, price and convenience, man. I want to know that I can get it cheap when I want it. And so I pass probably a dozen stores and drive 20 minutes instead of 2 to my local one because they can't figure out inventory.
I'm gonna remember that when we're running the shop down in wherever we open it. So tune in for more of those things. And then we got news out of Missouri. Congratulations to the people who won. We were lucky enough to put together an incubator and win. And so, a client of ours is happy. And that's kind of how it works. Like when it is these social equity lotteries, there were 1,600 applications for 48 licenses. Now it gets worse than that because there was actually over 1,000 for just 16 licenses, because that's how many people applied for a dispensary. So 1,000 chasing 16, and then the grows, they were much better odds, 500 chasing 32. So you can do the math, and if you want our help doing the math, you can find us. But it's one of those deals where 16 licenses, 1,000 people apply. There must be a cash flow. Otherwise, why would somebody work that hard to get this stuff,
Right.
Yep. And then they're doing another round next year as well. So Missouri is going to do 3 of them. And so this was 2023. They got 24. They got 25. I will be interested to see if there's another 1,000 chasing 16 licenses, another 500 chasing 32 next year. But I don't know. You have to kind of wait and see how it turns out.
Again, man, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, man, but that's too many tomato farmers for any one state. Look at Oklahoma. It's a lot. So all these people getting in because they think they're going to have the genetics, the fire, the whatever, and it's, you got to try, I guess. I'm not telling people not to, but damn, that's a lot of. There's going to be 800 people that lose a ton of money if 1,000 people are applying.
Yes, and so that 1,000 people were applying for the 16 retail licenses, and then those retailers can only buy from the 32 wholesaler licenses, which if you are a grower and following us at home, that's great. You're freaking awesome, man. Basically, it's a 50 light, and so it is a 50 light operation in Missouri for a micro. Both sides, though, you can both cultivate and process. So, it's a wonderful entry.
So it's not vertical? It's not a vertical license? You can't have all three? Wow. Why would they do something so stupid and follow Washington? That's the dumbest thing ever.
They are trying to create interesting partnerships or contract relationships, I must infer, simply because you can only own one. It's a one and done too. And so like pick a side, grow, process, or retail, and then you get that micro. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
End of licensing. Now you can manage it. You can manage as many as you want if you stay within the levels. But still, at the end of the day, it's a 50 light, and then it's a dispensary that can only buy from that 50 light. And so, what are you supposed to do as a dispensary? You are going to be waiting as long as it takes for the supply to come online.
Right.
And you need it to stay. And so, like the dispensaries will be open in 2-3 months, and then the growers might be open in 6-12 months. And then the growers will be ready to ship product another 4 months after that, best case scenario. So what is that retailer supposed to do with like a lease and rent and all that stuff for 18 months?
And it's going to be expensive because it's all indoor, because in theory, you weren't supposed to grow before. So if you have a seed to sale tracking and you're not supposed to plant until you get your license, that means there will be no outdoor harvest for that bottom shelf opportunity.
You can't buy anybody else's weed. So like you can't stock your shelves with all the people that are out there right now trying to move their product. Mm-hmm. So that retailer can't call up Amaze Cannabis, shout out to them in Missouri and stock their shelves. They have to wait until this new start with their 250 plants as a micro gets going and has something for them to sell. So like, dude. Yeah. I'm going to like identify real estate and then just watch it like after I win and be like, okay, yeah, no, we're not ready yet. Even if we were ready, even we built it and we paid you for the real estate.
And so there's no medical that's already existing and they can't just roll that over, because at least we had that in Washington where there wasn't this screwed up situation where a lot of these new emerging markets would just say, hey, here we're open, and then there's absolutely zero product to be sold because there's nothing, they haven't grown anything yet. So why the backwards format?
It's a dual license, and so like you are able to sell both medical and adult use. But the trick is you as a micro, the type of license that you were just awarded is a micro. And so a micro can only buy from a micro. And so that's the weird thing that they kind of built into the system, that you are going to be able to only get one of these two new types of licenses, and you must create an ecosystem of purchasing. So there's going to be interesting contractual relationships in like 3 or 4 years, or they're going to change the law and allow the micros to buy from the macros.
Yeah, there's still going to be a massive bottleneck and shortage, unfortunately, like every other time, because that's a stupid way to roll it out.
Hey, it is Missouri. Speaking of something that's not Missouri, federal policy, this might come to change here soon, especially if the Garland Memo exempts the industry. And so don't forget, we should talk to Normal about a petition or something. This cannabis retailer has been denied citizenship, and she is planning a SCOTUS appeal. This is out of Cannabis Business Executive. Shout out to Cannabis Business Executive. We have the guy who actually wrote it. Tom Himes, I believe, is the publisher of this periodical. But Reimers is a 45-year-old mother of 2 with permanent residency, no criminal record, and she applied for naturalization in 17. But in 18, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services denied her application, finding her co-ownership of a Farah-based Canarail station made her an illicit trafficker of a controlled substance. And so she hired this lawyer, Alicia Moss, right there, and they are going to appeal this and even revisit the Rage case. Now, I'm not sure. This would be interesting, and I don't do a lot of litigation. We had some updates in the litigation I do on Friday, but this change may allow this person to get their citizenship because it's an illicit. That's what they said. Let me just zoom this in. We can move around right in there. And so that's just a picture of the lawyer. And so it is an illicit trafficker of a controlled substance. And so this is probably from an official denial letter from the USCIS. And so if this is an illicit trafficker of a controlled substance, if the Garland Memo exempts the industry from having to register with the Attorney General, the DEA, and they would be in compliance with the federal laws and policies, according to them, pending the final rules by DEA, that would moot the letter they sent in 2018. And you would have a different litigation strategy and be like, can we just petition for maybe you would prevail then. I mean, like, do you just file that in the court and say, look, new law has come to light, which didn't exist at the time?
Yeah, try anything you can. In the meantime, thank God they're keeping us safe, though. She looks like a freaking criminal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Because people that own dispensaries are freaking criminals. You know?
Yeah, a mother like with a partial dispensary owner. I mean, she sounds terrible. Yeah.
Right. Just, I mean, that's terrible. But, she should be ashamed of herself. She should be.
All those things.
Yes. Oh, all of them. And then we're just going to revisit, maybe you don't want to join an incubator and you just want to go yourself over in Maryland, which is launching, by the way. Our templates are ready. And so you can get our templates. We'll make a pitch about like, oh, you're eligible. You sure you don't want to join our incubator? Here is the link that you can find that. But we got the as much as we can drafted. And then they will publish more and then we will revise them. But, we're going to apply in Maryland. We hope to apply a lot in Maryland and be successful. But everybody does social equity differently.
Gotta love lotteries. Powerball in Washington's at 420 million, folks.
Oh shit! Buy me some tickets on the way home.
420 million. I took a video of it. I saw 420 flashing at me, and I'm like, "What? I'm on my way." And then I was like, "Oh, that's for Powerball." Cool.
Powerball, man. Yeah, I like the gas stations because like some people actually call their dispensaries that, but also Green Thumb Industries is trying to get a dispensary at a gas station. A wonderful idea. I've seen them before in Michigan. I can't remember the name of the dispensary, but it used to be an Arby's. Like you've seen like gas stations that have like a fast food franchise in it and it goes belly up. Yeah, they put a dispo in it. I'm like, that is freaking
when I was talking to you, it was just when I was looking for some investors for your dispensary, I was talking to the guy with cookies who also has the license for Green Thumb. And they're aggressively looking. There's a place in Washington that would open up at gas stations, and it was called the Gas Station. And then he left for California because of the laws here. But yeah, it's kitschy. It's good.
No, it's retail is about sales, and so like if you can find out where the McDonald's, the gas stations, and the Starbucks are in your area, you might be on to where you should put a dispensary. And that's one of the reasons why working with like REITs is a good thing, because these real estate investors want a stable cash flow. They want their tenants paying. They don't want a default because that'll gum up the cash flows and create the litigation. And so they'll help you scout the location.
Mm-hmm. What's it going to do for driving? You obviously can't drive impaired, but how are they going to know? Because right now it's a really stupid rule at 5 nanograms, and I'm DUI all day long with this stupid thing. So how's a federal law going to change that?
Well, again, there is a federal standard for alcohol impairment, and that took many decades for that to become the law. And when I was younger, it was 0.1. Now it's down to 0.08, and they used federal highway funds. That allows us to get into this next article, which is so bad that I am going to hit one of our bumpers. Well, this was terrible. This was published on Friday. A GOP congressman's bill would cut federal funding for states and tribes that legalize marijuana. Shout out to Marijuana Moment. They are the ones reporting on this. Ben Adelin has published it. And legislation introduced on Friday by North Carolina Congressman seeks to slash federal funding as well to Native tribes who legalize weed. It's the Stop Pot Act, sponsored by U.S. Rep. Chuck Edwards, a Republican from North Carolina. This bill would withhold 10% of federal highway funding to jurisdictions where the purchase or public possession of marijuana for recreational purposes is lawful.
That's amazing. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the NAACP was hired by Coca-Cola to make anyone look racist if they opposed federal taxes going towards sugary drinks. There was a big push against food stamps and junk food, and so in order to combat that, big business, Coke and Pepsi went in and said, "Oh well, if you're going to do that, that's racist because people of color, black people, like drinking Coke," which is a stupid argument. But they were like, "Oh well, we don't want to be like claim we're racist, so better cut that, better not."
That's a wonderful lobbying dollar right there. It's
why
like,
don't we do the same thing?
Pay us to be your political consultant, lobby with us. Why would I do that?
Just do the same thing. Hire the NAACP and do the same thing and make them sound racist. I mean, as dumb as it sounds, like just play their own game.
Look, I'm sure the NAACP has a package, a consulting package or contribution level for this. They've done it before, you're saying.
Yeah, it's stamped. There's a copy and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not able to do that. I tell you, some people can, but the NAACP, they can. Hey, let's do some more news. And for example, this article was just crap. And it's just crap, but they do say here's the sponsors to it. 2 organizations have endorsed this bill so far, and if you're with one of these organizations, chances are you are a square. They are Smart Approaches to Marijuana, aka SAM, and the Christian Action League. I tell you what, I don't mind if I'm not cohorting with them. All right, moving on to that next. That one was from a while ago. There it is. This is what happens. And so if you've seen The Big Lebowski before, you should. Walter complains that this is what happens, Larry, when you fuck a stranger in the ass. And so first off, there's going to be pop-up ads. But Cannabis Business Times reported this last week. Verano sues the Alabama regulators over voided licenses. Multi-state operator is one of 21 awardees in a medical cannabis licensing process that is now in question. Rumor is they are going to do another round of licensing down there, but it's $40 million that they said that we're ready to invest in this state. Patients deserve better than years of litigation, and they're ready to invest $40 million. So this is what happens when you do limited market cannabis merit-based for your medical program. And Alabama's medical program is what I would call piss poor because it does not allow flower or THC really. So it's just a glorified CBD hemp program that people are fighting tooth and nail for huge grows, just ridiculous size grows, no patience, and like a political will that's just not even there for it, I don't understand why people do these.
Well, it sounds like there's 2 people that might benefit from that, and it sounds like they may have written that bill.
Yeah, that's correct. And so that's the other thing that happens is rent-seeking behavior from the political insiders. They write the bill to benefit them, thinking they're going to make all the money, and then they block everybody else out using this, merit-based complex application where you have to write like a 700-page instruction manual and show all this cash. Verano's like beating their chest saying, "We got $40 million, bro. Dad owns a dealership." And he's like trying to make a big deal of this. But the only thing that happens is the industry does not roll out. Patients are not served. People are not having the industry there when it's like an actual industry. Now, the exact opposite of that would be Oklahoma, but there has to be some type of happy medium somewhere where, and I think Missouri did a great job, where they had a regulated and expensive style, but they also did merit-based and they ended up in litigation for 2 years. So they should really just get rid of merit-based and do like what New Jersey's doing for the applications for adult use, where here's the compliance, follow the rules. We need your application. It needs to be complete, 200 pages. Okay, do you have zoning and community approval? Okay, do you have the money to get built? Well, that's on you.
Yeah, that almost sounds like it makes too much sense, though.
Can you believe that shit came out of New Jersey? Like the most sensible cannabis bill going on, pretty much, except for Michigan. Michigan's done a great job too, in my opinion. But
yeah, I've seen some good stuff out of New Jersey. Like, I think my favorite was the cannabis lounge bill, where they just erased the Clean Air Indoor Act. Like, this bill eliminates that with the swipe of a pen, and I was like, man, that is brilliant. Copying that for Washington State, I love it.
Yeah, does Washington State allow indoor consumption?
Absolutely not. It's a felony. It's the only place that has a Class C felony on consumption and maintaining and operating a cannabis lounge. It's the strictest rules, I think, in the country for that.
Yeah, there are how many bars in Washington State? Like how many?
About as many as Starbucks. A lot.
Yeah, hundreds, thousands probably. Not one place, and it's a felony. I remember visiting, and I can't wait to visit again. Hopefully this year, but this year is quickly burning through. We'll see. But I think it was like 16 or maybe 19. You'd have a bus, and people will go inside and smoke on the bus. Like, what was that? Was that your loophole?
Well, yeah, for events. And those don't really exist anymore. One of them went to Florida. One of them stopped doing it. One of them went to another industry. So they don't, none of those. Oh yeah. And another one just quit altogether. So yeah, none of them are around anymore.
Fucked up.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing in this whole like Northwest, even Oregon. There's nothing going on in Oregon at all. Very little going in BC, British Columbia as well. So the whole Northwest is lame. California is still popping up. It's weird. So yeah, there's not a lot in the West right now to go to in terms of events. Hemp Fest, unfortunately, is out for the count. It's weird.
Well, maybe that'll be the future of the industry. There just won't be one. There'll be one, but nobody will care.
They don't. Miggy just went to an event called oh my god, I don't remember. So it was a concert in Renton, and there's a lot of, it was a $100 ticket though. They were giving away a Corvette, and there was rappers and stars and stuff there, but still it's not going to draw the same kind of crowd that 100,000 Hemp Fest 3-day event used to.
Well, that was a protestival that was done as a nonprofit. And so like certain ventures will fail. And then like, especially over time, especially if there's not cohesion, capital, and like a succession plan. This is one of the reasons why if you want your company to like last, a corporation makes a lot of sense, because then the founder cannot be the president or the CEO and be like, okay, you run this shit, motherfucker. And then allow them to kind of back up a little bit. But, that was not how they ran it. And then also it just, I don't know how relevant it stayed, and then they were fucked with by Expedia as well, so it sucks. But the cannabis events, we don't really have them here in Illinois. We do have a few lounges, and it's the same thing. They just make an exception to the Smoke Free Act, or they include tobacco retailers as well. They're fine. Like, consumption lounge is great. They still don't make all that much money. I mean, we'll see if Vegas is. Those are going to be rolling out here probably into 24. And if the consumption lounge business model can't make it in Vegas, you'll know.
Right. Yeah, they got wiped out. That's for sure. In Colorado, they got, and Oregon, they all got wiped out during COVID. So I think they're still up in Vancouver, but I haven't been up there since January of 2020. So
right. And I haven't been to Canada since 1994. Let's play some Name That Strain. What's happening? There's a strain that you can name. This one is popular. Seen it before reportedly. Like that's the thing when I haven't grown the plant, I don't necessarily. Even then, like I didn't breed it, so I don't know like what his parents were. And so like you still are taking a lot on trust. But it's a popular one. It's an indica. What do you think about that nugget, Josh? Are you an indica guy?
No, it shuts me up. I can't think, function, or do anything, which is great for nighttime.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, very rarely, except at night, will I dive into an indica. But it looks all right. It's got some orange hairs in there that look like they might be talking to me.
Well, it's a hybrid. I shouldn't have said that it was completely indica. There is one of its parents is OG Kush. So there is an indica parent out there, but then its other parent is strawberry diesel. And so the strawberry diesel is usually more of a, daytime cerebral strain. So it's a hybrid.
Yeah, diesels aren't bad depending on who grows it. Not too shabby. Like Kush is good for that body high at night. Might be a good Kush.
Master Kush it is not. This one has to do with comic books. So if you understand comic books, you will probably get that. No, it's just not. Jerry Seinfeld is not a comic book. He is a comic. But if you're into comic books, this strain is named after a comic book character. That's also a good hint. Parents are OG Kush and Strawberry Diesel, bred by Dark Horse Genetics. As Chad is watching, we'll probably get that. And I like how somebody goes Batman. I'm like, no, sorry. But Bruce Banner, William Taylor, that is it. Ding, ding, ding. We have a wiener. And so we don't really mail out things for winners anymore. We should probably start doing that again. But yeah, that's Bruce Banner. And according to Leafly, it is there. I'm going to get rid of that over there. But Bruce Banner is known as the alter ego of the comic book character, the Incredible Hulk, and it's potent, 21% average. Expect the effects to be strong, come on quickly, and be in a euphoric and creative high. Some body relaxation. Best enjoyed during the daytime, they say. Originally bred by Dark Horse Genetics, cross of OG Kush and Strawberry Diesel. It does have a diesel aroma, and its dominant terpene is myrcene.
Ooh, that's munchies. You might go crazy or rip apart your fridge and turn into the Hulk with myrcene. Be careful.
Oh, nice. Well, they did say it's a daytime strain.
Yeah, you might turn into a gremlin, get really crazy.
Awesome. And then we do have some pot stock news. And so there's pot stock news, but we have some cannabis study news first. And these are the good stories. Normal reports the good stories. Other people, they report crap and they report stuff that's intended to scare. Normal and report stuff that's intended to educate and also make sure that you're not going to put up with lies. Study. Cannabis exposure not associated with increased psychosis risk among among high-risk youth. And so a team of researchers from Hofstra University and Stanford Safety School assessed relationships between cannabis use and health outcomes in a cohort of adolescent children at clinical high risk for psychosis. Study tracked the participants for 2 years and also included a 2-year follow-up. And there was not associated with any increased psychosis transition, did not worsen clinical systems, functional levels, or overall neurocognition.
So this is a theory that if you smoke really high THC, you might get bipolar or something. You might skits out.
That's right. It will make you nuts. And so that is that old chestnut that you hear as to and you'll wait, because if you try to legalize it in your state, and now that it's going to be Schedule 3, you should look at you, Indiana. People, and those people will typically be Republicans, will say shit like that it makes you insane, that increases a psychosis risk. This is bad for children, it's bad for safety, and then party line vote. And that just happened in May in Minnesota. And now people from Minnesota call us. Yeah. And it's nice. And so the Minnesotans will win there eventually.
Well, that's why we should lower the alcohol limit to 12 years old, because drinking poison is just so much more better for you than that natural plant. I mean, get rid of that. and give
Right.
the kids alcohol. Jeez, what are we doing?
Seriously. Right, and then let's encourage that. Let's make sure that we name the bleachers at Wrigley Field the Budweiser bleachers. Hey, can we use Clydesdale horses in our advertisements for weed? No. What about dogs? Are we allowed to use dogs? Dogs appeal to children. Also, no. Damn it. Why can't we get the love and admiration and respect that alcohol, which is a carcinogen, it can also kill you. It can poison your liver, but so can fructose.
Be careful of those crazy shapes. Might be addictive, to children if it's too bright in colors. But don't do black and white because that might be, attracting kids too. So just maybe don't do anything. That's the safest.
Okay, but then you can walk down the cereal aisle, and the cereal people, and by people I mean it's a cartoon character on the cereal box. The cereal tastes like candy. It has a whole bunch of added sugar in it, which is just also hitting the liver so that they can digest that stuff and making them fatter. They draw the pictures in the cereal boxes to be looking down. And so like the eyes would catch a toddler walking through the aisle because they're looking down, which is creepy. But, you're trying to increase sales. You're not trying to, and you're exploiting children to increase the sales. That's fine because it's not weed, I guess, right?
Yeah, for all you conspiracy theorists, check out Edward Bernays. He is the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who got us to eat the American breakfast we do, also got females to smoke cigarettes, and has manipulated Americans forever, and you probably didn't even know it. Check him out. Edward Bernays. Fascinating rabbit hole.
Edward Bernays, everybody. We'll have a quiz on that next week. And so also, we do have some pot stocks because they had an amazing week last week.
Fire!
Down. Hot stocks. Where are they this week? 45. No, wait. Time to get high on 3 hot stocks or 3 catalysts. This is how they performed, or relative to the S&P. The pot stocks are down about 80%. The S&P is up about 20. And then do they actually have real charts? Story continues. No. There we go. Constellation Brands. Okay, this is just garbage.
That's not fair, though, because they have alcohol to hold them up. They're not strictly a cannabis company, so that's not entirely fair. They haven't been hammered nearly as bad as like a Tilray or one of those other garbage companies.
Green Thumb Industries, not necessarily a garbage company. They've gone profitable, and they probably will stay profitable, but they really popped hard. Tilray, that's the problem. Tilray is actually selling. Wasn't that the one that's offloading or purchasing? No,
they bought for $83 million. They bought 8 brands from Budweiser, and they got a couple brands from Coors in order to do some non-alcoholic CBD, I'm assuming, or to differentiate because they suck at what they do.
Right, and so they are trying to get into, and they don't even have links to the stocks, I tell you. They are trying to Constellation Brands themselves, which is interesting. But let's see, Green Thumb for the week was up 40.7%, not bad. And then if you do 6 months, it's actually up 10%. And if we do a whole year, it's down 25% for the year. But you can see it's like, whoop, that right there. That was Wednesday. That was the Schedule 3 news. In theory, it could retest. And if it does trace that, that would be a pretty bullish indicator, but we'll see that. And then let's see, who else is, we could look at their stocks. Curaleaf, maybe. How much do you think they were up? Curaleaf stock?
20% probably on average.
Let's do the 5 days. Yeah, they're up 37%. For 1 year, they are down 40%. How about Trulieve? Trulieve stock or stock news, 5 days, 63%.
Go to PSDN, the Poseidon ETF, which is a basket of currencies.
PSDN.
PSDN, they had to shut down within 2 years of launching this exchange traded fund or ETF. They had to shut down because no one was buying anything. So it's funny how these things pop with the news, but in reality, like, this market goes nowhere. And so funds like the Poseidon Asset Management Group, who are great, have to shut down because there's literally no volume or interest.
The funniest thing is they shut down on the 25th of August.
Uh-huh.
A week later, was the biggest news for pod stocks in 50 years. You know,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah, and a lot of them are. They've told me on my podcast that nobody is anticipating financial news. They're not making any decisions based on it, any federal news at all. And then, bam, this happens. So, right when people give up, I always say pendulum always swings at when people expect it the least. So here you go.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. All right, we have a couple more stories, but it's been about an hour, so I don't like that one. That one was more, it's just like that one from Normal, and then so you'll also see stuff like this. It just completely contradicts the one from Normal, and then it's Forbes. So like, good luck not getting hit with all the ads in the world. Marijuana smokers have higher levels of toxic metals in tests, according to a study. And it was a pretty shitty study. Like they had no confounders at all, and they were pretty much just ignoring that it was worse in people that smoked tobacco, and that a lot of the people that were scoring high were because they used both products. So it's Forbes, and so they really don't have a lot of the science in there, but they're pushing the narrative. And so like, I bet you'll see a rejoinder probably on normal.org to this article or this study in about 6 months.
I worry about that with hemp coming from places like China that typically have some heavy metal in their soil. Hemp also absorbs a lot more than cannabis in terms of its uptake from the soil. But cannabis, like, what metals are you talking about? Because if you're talking about the normal nutrients that you're putting in there, then maybe that's some of the nutrients. But if you flush it properly, then no. So I guess it kind of depends on where you're getting it, where you're talking about. I've never seen that having any issue. And in fact, if you look at the neural protectant, the patent that the government has, patent number 6630507, neural protectant, it protects you against heavy metals that cause dementia, Alzheimer's, and things like that. So seems counter intuitive with that article, but yeah, they got a narrative to push.
They do. Yeah, but it was the lead levels and cadmium levels is what they are reporting. But and it's somebody will dig into this. Forbes, I can get an article published in Forbes for 10 grand, and one day I will, because I want those backlinks and it'll make me seem like a person. Yeah, and so I don't believe what is in Forbes because I know that you can buy your way into Forbes.
Yeah.
All right, man. Where can people find you? And, thanks for hanging out and talking about the news. Is there anything going on in your world that the audience needs to hear?
I'm getting ready to get some stuff down in Vegas. If anybody's down there, I want to get a female perspective on the cannabis industry in Vegas. So that's going to be one of my main focuses at MJ BizCon, the world's largest cannabis conferences, November 27th through December 1st. I will be in Las Vegas, trying to get out of the Seattle rain. I'm trying to drag Miggy with me. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll take him, because I'll be there too. And so the company, one of the companies, he won the license, for us, and so we'll have him there too, because we gotta. Hopefully, we found at least most of our investment by then, but you never know. And then you'll never find investment at MJ Biz. There's just too many dang people.
It's a great place to network and get started. So I'm looking to do some interviews down there. Fifth and final season of the Talking Hedge, and then we'll see where it goes. Just gonna focus on the investment sector for 2024 and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that investment sector, that's where the money is. And so
cannabis is broke, man. They are broke. And I don't really want to have a podcast talking about negative stuff all the time. And it's going to be a turnaround industry. People are getting into holes they need people to dig them out of. And those stories seem to be coming all the time. And it's getting boring for me. So I might as well just focus on my hedge fund and investing and some other stuff.
Yeah, because the industry is not that big. I think it's gonna. Okay, so the .com boom and the bust, and so that happened in cannabis, and 21 was the boom, and then it busted, and so just like 1999 was the boom for the .coms, it busted pretty hard, but then we had movement this week, So I think it's going to start booming again. But just like how Amazon kind of weathered the storm, Facebook didn't exist during the 99, AOL went away, MySpace didn't make it out, like there will be new players that are going to come in and they'll be benefited just from timing.
Yeah, timing is everything, man. And speaking of, let me pimp Toro alerts. If you guys want to be notified when to buy, when to sell pot stocks, download Toro alerts on iOS or Android for crypto or stocks. Toro alerts will alert you when to buy, when to sell pot stocks.
Awesome. Hey, everybody, that's our show. If you need anything, you can find me over at cannabisindustrylawyer.com or collateralbase.com. And then, of course, here on Cannabis Legalization News, also on Facebook, it's facebook.com/free THC. Hopefully, the change in federal policy means you can find that page more easily now, and it won't ask you if you need drug rehabilitation if you don't access it. Yep. All right. Thanks, guys. It was wonderful hanging out. And, we have more scripted stuff coming. So tune in and we'll see you when it's 420 somewhere.